Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Dear Body Podcast. It's your host, Jessie Jean. And today we're going to dive in and talk about weight loss and food freedom and how I personally navigated wanting both. I think it's unfair to talk about food freedom and intuitive eating without also talking about the very real desire that so many of us have when we're navigating that journey, which is weight loss or aesthetic goals. And how do we handle both? Should we lose the weight first, then pursue intuitive eating and healing our relationship with food? Can you lose weight and eat intuitively? Do you need to let go of wanting to lose weight if you also want food freedom and a healthy relationship with food? Those are very real questions that I had, and I want to share how I personally navigated them. So thanks for joining me on today's episode. If you haven't yet joined my completely free VIP email list, it's a pretty fun place where I share exclusive and tangible tips on navigating healing your relationship with food and your body, and just share some fun life updates, content that you won't see on Instagram or TikTok or here on the podcast. If you want to be a part of our email squad, you can go to www.jessie with an I, Jessi, Jean, JEAN.com/VIP. You can sign up for that. We talk about nervous system regulation. I give some tangible tips and strategies for how to support nervous system regulation with a really cool PDF that you'll get on how that all works, explaining that process and how that relates to healing a dysfunctional relationship with food in your body, and so much more. So if you're interested in being a part of that, you can check that out. Again, I'll put the link in the show notes. But with all of that said, let's talk about weight loss. Let's talk about food freedom. And the first thing that I want to share is if you find yourself in the place where you have both of these desires, you have weight loss desires and a desire, or maybe it's aesthetic goals, fitness goals, and you also have the desire for a healthy, balanced relationship with food, a desire to learn more about intuitive eating, to have food freedom, to not be in the cycles of binge and emotional overeating. Welcome to the majority of people. Most people have both of these things, both of these desires happening simultaneously. And I think it's unfair actually to talk about food freedom and healing your relationship with food and intuitive eating without also acknowledging the very real fact that so many also have a desire for weight loss and aesthetic goals and fitness goals. And if we leave that out of the conversation, I think it leads to a lot of confusion. And for me personally, it kept me in this place of almost what felt like paralysis. Like I felt frozen in my journey because I didn't know how to take action, because both of those goals seemed like I had competing desires, and I didn't know how to navigate having both of those things at the same time. So my journey kind of starts where I started desiring both food freedom and weight loss starts after my very first fitness competition, my very first bikini competition when I was in my fitness competing days. I could care less about having a healthy relationship with food. That was not in my mind really at all. I mean, I wanted to have balance with food, but I did not think very deeply about what it meant to have a healthy relationship with food. I didn't even really know what that looked like. I knew I just wanted to stop. I didn't want to be binge eating, but it didn't matter what I needed to do to achieve the body that I wanted. I cared very little, or I put very little emphasis on how my actions were negatively impacting my psyche, my mental health. I just was so focused on achieving my aesthetic goals and achieving my fitness goals. And when I got to my first competition and I stood on stage, I was so sick. I was so emaciated. I was so energy drained. My skin was breaking out. My hair was falling out. Zero sex drive. My hormones were totally out of whack. And leading up to that, I didn't really care too much about what I was doing and how it was impacting my mental health, because I was so fixated on achieving a certain body type, because I thought once I achieved it, well, I would never let it go. And that couldn't be further from the truth. As soon as that competition ended, I weight rebounded and gained more weight than I had even lost, faster than I'd ever gained weight. But I didn't have enough education, enough support, enough understanding of the process. And so that brings me to, after my very first competition, I started to realize, wow, I can't just be so fixated on weight loss and achieving an aesthetic goal without also paying attention to how it's impacting my relationship with food and my mental health, because, there's there's only so much discipline and willpower to go against your body's biology that you can muster up. And there's only so much white knuckling that you can do before you eventually snap and say, fuck it. And, you spiral out of control with food. There's only, I did it for 3-4 months leading up to that first competition, dieted super hard. And your mind fatigues, your body fatigues. And you get to this point where, you just kind of throw your hands up and you're like, screw it, I can't do this. And then you start to spiral what feels like out of control. And so that was really the first time that I started to have this desire for both. Okay, I want to lose weight. I have these fitness goals. I have these aesthetic goals. But I also want to have a healthy relationship with food. I do not want to be so neurotic around food. And I was seeing how, that very first intense diet that I did for my competition, how that impacted I had zero social life whatsoever. And I was short-tempered with my parents, with my loved ones, and I wanted more. And I could not fathom, I could not understand how people competed in these bikini competitions and kept their shape year round and looked a certain way and seem to have a healthy relationship with food. I did not get it. Knowing what I know now about the fitness industry and about competing, the majority of people that are in that industry, in the world of competing, have a very unhealthy relationship with food and are struggling with binge and emotional overeating like crazy. But I didn't know that at the time. And so I'm having this desire to achieve a certain aesthetic, to look a certain way, but I also am so sick and tired of the yo-yoing and, going from one extreme with food to another where I white knuckle it and I'm on my A game and then I fatigue mentally, emotionally, physically, and I just, have the screw it mentality. I was really sick of swinging from, one end of the spectrum to another. And that's when I found a fitness coach that I worked with who introduced me to flexible dieting and macro tracking. And that was a step in, I would say, a better direction in my journey because it wasn't as rigid as this meal plan that I was on formerly. But the reality is, if you've ever done macro tracking or flexible dieting, you're still thinking about food so often because you're counting and weighing and measuring every gram of protein, carbs, and fats that you're eating. You're prepping your food and you're putting it in Tupperware and you're making sure you know your plans with food ahead of time so that you can stay on track and you can hit your macros, and you're not really listening to your hunger, fullness, and satiety cues at all. It didn't even matter if I wasn't hungry. If I had extra macros left, I felt like I needed to eat because, the next day would start, and if I didn't eat all of my macros for that day, regardless of hunger or fullness, I wouldn't get them tomorrow, so I better eat it all today. And so you don't listen to your hunger and fullness and satiety cues. So food's not easy. It's not natural. You're listening to external cues rather than internal cues. But I didn't know that you could even listen to internal cues and have a balanced relationship with food. I didn't know that was possible because every time I had attempted doing that, or I would have what I would consider a cheat day or a free day, it would turn into a binge. It would turn into a lot of overeating. It would feel, for me, kind of out of control. I was obsessive compulsive, and so that didn't feel good. But when I was in that season of macro tracking and flexible dieting, what I began to realize about myself was that I wanted more. Like, if this is how life was, it felt like I was being gypped of life because I spent so much time prepping and preparing meals, and food was still in many ways all consuming, and my body image was still in many ways all consuming. And I think that's when I started to realize there's got to be more to life than this. There's got to be more to life than stressing about going on a vacation, because I typically spiral out of control on vacation because I don't have access to my normal foods and meal prepping and the gym. Like, there's got to be more to life than, having anxiety around the holidays because I'm in the presence of so much food. Like, this can't be it. But I still didn't feel good enough in my own body. And I still had this desire for weight loss and a desire to not have this dysfunctional relationship with food. And so what I started to realize was that maybe the goals that I had for my life were a little bit more multidimensional than just weight loss and just not binge or emotional overeating. And this is the very first point that I want to make that I think is so important that I didn't realize at the time was so important. And I think it was honestly hitting me so hard because I had lost weight and still didn't feel fully satisfied, that maybe there was more that I was wanting besides just weight loss and besides just having my body look a certain way, because I had gotten to that place and I felt empty. I didn't feel confident. I still didn't feel like I had achieved enough. And so this was, I think, the very first time where I started to consider that I didn't just want to lose weight. I also wanted food freedom, but beyond that, I wanted to feel something. I wanted to feel a life of purpose. I wanted to feel meaningful. I wanted to have a really amazing social life and friends. And I also wanted to have space to have intimacy and feel confident in an intimate and romantic relationship. I had a goal to get married and start a family one day. I had career development goals and financial goals. I wanted to buy a house. I had all of these different goals, and I wanted to spend time with my family. I wanted to create really amazing and unique memories with my family. I had goals of, wanting to travel and see certain things. I have hobbies that need time and energy. I love snowboarding. Like, there was all these different aspects of what, made me me. And I think what I started to realize was that if I didn't have a broader perspective on my life, the weight loss and the aesthetic goals became so all-consuming. And I wish somebody would have shared with me when I was going through that season this analogy or this visualization, if you will, that I often share with clients that I work with inside the Food Freedom Online program. But essentially, it's this self-perception pie chart. And so when you think about your life and you think about the perspective that you have on yourself, we only have so much mental energy each and every day to give to the variety of things that we have going on every single day. And what I was realizing was that, my self-perception and the mental energy that I gave each day, like if I were to put weight loss goals or aesthetic goals or fitness goals into this pie chart of life, it was a very huge slice of the pie. A lot of my mental energy was going towards fitness and weight loss goals and the desire to not binge, this desire I had to not emotionally overeat. Like, it was occupying a lot of my mind, and a lot of my self-perception was wrapped around in that because I felt like I was my body, that I wasn't more than my body. And so I think this was the first time in my journey where I started to consider maybe that piece of the pie is allowed to be there, but it's way too big. It's occupying too much mental energy, and I'm not seeing the entire picture. And so when you think about your self-perception or you think about your life, think about just visualize a pie chart in your mind and think about all the different hobbies that you have, all the different intentions or goals or desires that you have. How do you want to feel in your life? What do you want your life to look like? Where do you want to live? What do you want to do? What experiences do you want to have? And how do those fit into that pie chart of what makes you you? And maybe it's all allowed to be there. Maybe the weight loss desires or the aesthetic desires are allowed to be a piece of that pie, but maybe right now they're taking up way too much of that pie chart. And I realized that was happening. And when I was getting real with my spirit, I had this conviction that if I don't start intentionally focusing on these other aspects of my life, they're not going to move forward. The needle's not going to move forward in my desire to create financial freedom and my desire to pursue a certain career. The needle's not going to move forward in, creating a really amazing friendship and social circle if I don't give it any time and energy. The needle's not going to move forward in repairing broken relationships with my family if I don't give it any energy or any space, because so much of my mind is consumed with weight loss and aesthetic goals. And I realized what was fueling this obsession was what I was consuming and the crowd that I was running with and the social media accounts that I were following were contributing to this obsession. And so when I started to recognize, wait a second, I have other desires, I realized I needed to dedicate time and energy and diversify my social media feed and diversify what I talked about with other people, what I watched, what I consumed, to give time and energy to each of those things that I was saying were important, but wasn't giving any time and energy to. And, I think the question comes up a lot when you're in this journey of, healing your relationship with food. I hear this question all the time. And the question is, do I need to let go of wanting to lose weight if I want food freedom? For me, I was terrified. And that's what kept me in this place of almost paralysis, being frozen and not wanting to take action to even understand intuitive eating and how it worked, because I was so afraid that it went against this desire I had for weight loss. And my answer to this question, do I need to let go of wanting to lose weight if I want food freedom, is what if instead of asking that question, we shifted our perspective and said, what else am I not focusing on in my life that needs time, energy, and space, because so much of my mind is being consumed with this desire to lose weight. And that doesn't mean that it can't have a sliver of that pie. And if you've got a journal, it would be super cool. Or just grab a piece of paper, draw a circle, and start writing out, start dividing that circle into, different slices of a pie in terms of what your hobbies are, what your career goals are, what experiences you want to have, what emotions and what things you want to feel in this lifetime. Start writing those things out. Who's important to you? Who do you want to spend time with? Put all of those things in a pie chart, and all of your goals, all of your intentions for the various areas of your life, all of the things you don't want to forget to give energy and give time, and go, maybe I'm giving way too much energy to this weight loss, to these aesthetic goals. Maybe so much of my mind is becoming consumed with that because, of what I'm consuming on social media and this pressure from society and from diet culture. And so instead of going, I have to let go of it, I have to erase that, piece of the pie, I have to remove that from my pie chart. Maybe we can just shrink the size of it, shrink the size of that pie so that we have energy and mental resource to give to other things that are important. And I think what happens is when we begin to put our life into a bigger picture perspective and see all the different categories, like maybe you have children that you want to give energy to and you want to show up for, when we have perspective, I think it becomes really encouraging and really life-giving, and we're able to put things in their appropriate places and pursue things and not feel so defeated because one slice of our pie is all-consuming and we don't feel like we're succeeding in that. So maybe instead of, do I need to let go of wanting to lose weight, maybe I just need to put it in the appropriate perspective in terms of everything that's important in my life, because if it's overtaking, so much of my time and energy that I'm short-tempered with my family members, or I'm not allowing myself to experience certain things because I'm feeling insecure in my skin, or it's keeping me from taking action in other areas of my life, it needs to get into the appropriate place in our mind and our heart. And even now, I have certain aesthetic desires and aesthetic goals. I would like to build my glutes, and I would like to be more toned, and I would like to understand more about skincare and skin treatments to, prevent fine lines and wrinkles and, help support, the reproduction of collagen, all of those different things. I have these desires, but they are in the appropriate place mentally in my mind. They're not all consuming. They don't make me feel defeated or insecure when I haven't achieved those things, because I've been able to broaden my perspective around what matters in my life and keep a broader perspective of what it is that my spirit is nudging me to pay attention to. So when this thought comes up of, do I need to let go of wanting to lose weight? And it feels very scary to think of that. For me, what I did was I said, I need to put all these other aspects of my life and what makes me me and what actually brings me purpose and meaning and fulfillment. I need to bring those into the frame, into picture, into my mind, so that I can feel like I'm not being tunnel focused on something that I'm going to wake up a week from now, a year from now, 2 years from now, and go, wow, I didn't pay attention to things that were really important, like my finances or my relationships with people that mattered, or, developing my career, or healing this broken relationship that I had. I'm somebody who wants to make sure that I'm paying attention to the bigger picture. And so when you're getting wrapped up in a negative body image, think about it as just body obsession, because the reality is it's just so much of your mental energy and your time and your spirit is going into thinking about it. That piece of your mental pie or your self-perception has gotten way too big. That's what leads to negative body image. If I have a desire to look a certain way, but the way that I look is just 1% of my, 100% pie chart, if you will, if 1% doesn't feel good, do I go down? Do I drown in insecurity? No, I'm able to focus on other things and have a bigger picture perspective. And that's what I lacked for so long, because places that I was plugged into, the fitness communities that I was plugged into, the social media feeds that I was looking at just continued to perpetuate this weight and aesthetic focused first life. So moving on to the next question, should I lose weight first, then pursue intuitive eating and healing my relationship with food? Absolutely not. And here's why. Whatever you do to lose the weight, just like for my first competition, I was like, okay, if I put the pressure on myself to lose all of this weight, to get into bikini shape, to stand on a stage and compete in fitness competitions, then surely I will not let it go. And I'll have developed a discipline and a balance with food that allows me to, forever have this body that I've dreamed of. But the reality is the methods that I used to pursue this weight loss were entirely unsustainable, and they didn't focus on behavior change and health promoting behaviors. And as a result, I rebounded. And if you've ever lost weight and then rebounded and gained it back, you know that if what you're doing does not feel sustainable over the long haul or isn't multi-dimensional approach that includes, focusing on, nervous system regulation and healing a dysfunctional relationship with food, it's not going to work. We're going to experience rebounding. So should you wait? Absolutely not. Should you pursue the weight loss first, then intuitive eating? Absolutely not. When I was in my season of macro tracking and flexible dieting, it kept me from being able to listen to my body, learn how to hear hunger, fullness, and satiety cues. Learning intuitive eating and healing your relationship with food will allow you to pursue, and healing your relationship with your body will allow you to pursue fitness and your goals from a fundamentally different mindset, and developing that mindset and developing that perspective and understanding the skills that you're lacking in order to have a healthy relationship with food, that should never wait. Developing those skills and understanding those skills should never wait, because you're really just delaying the process by this mindset of losing weight first, then pursuing it. The reality is weight rebounding and weight cycling is far more damaging for our body than being at a certain weight. And the reality is dieting and weight loss, it does not equal health. Weight does not equal health. And if we can focus on, instead of weight loss, if we can kind of broaden our perspective and instead focus on health promoting behaviors like movement, like getting in enough water, instead of what do I need to cut out of my life? What can I add in? What health promoting behaviors can I add in? Getting enough sleep, getting sunlight every day, getting enough hydration, focusing on adding in micronutrients by, having vegetables and fruit, like thinking about things from a different lens can produce so much groundedness and so much ease in our system, because we're actually supporting our health instead of becoming obsessive compulsive with one metric that has nothing to do with health, which is weight. And when we focus on trying to lose the weight first before pursuing healing our relationship with food, we're really not creating any semblance of long-term success. Because again, if what we're doing is unhealthy, or if what we're doing is unsustainable, we're just delaying the inevitable, whether that's weight rebounding or weight cycling, like we're delaying the inevitable. So might as well start focusing on what is actually going to create long-term success, which is focusing on health promoting behaviors and broadening our perspective and healing our relationship with food. And as a result, the body begins to find its natural set point weight where it feels and it functions its best at. And in that process, there is this learning to find peace with your body's natural set point weight. And sometimes our weight loss goals are unrealistic as to where our body feels and functions best at. I know I had this specific number in my head for so many years that I thought I would feel best at, look best at, where I would be healthiest at. And now that I am living and walking in food freedom and this ease and this effortlessness with food, there's no way my body would ever be at that weight and feel and function healthfully. And another negative to pursuing weight loss first before intuitive eating is that when we go on these restrictive diets, it increases our stress levels. It further dysregulates our nervous system, which leads to more impulsiveness with food. Restrictive dieting also slows down our metabolism, and as a result can increase our body's natural set point weight where it feels and functions best at. And so dieting just kind of wreaks havoc on our body, and pursuing weight loss from this restrictive place really creates a lot of health challenges. And we've seen from so much research in the field of intuitive eating that success rates are desperately low when it comes to dieting and its results over the long term. Even if you're able to lose weight in the short term, we see that diets fail 95% of the time in the long term to create sustainable results. So waiting, it's like, why wait if we know that it doesn't work long term? Why don't we start pursuing what a long-term solution is, which is healing our relationship with food and our body and being able to understand how to pursue fitness from, like I said, a fundamentally different place. So can you lose weight while intuitively eating? Some people do lose weight while intuitive eating because maybe their natural set point weight is lower than, where their body is currently at. Some people will gain weight in the process. Most people's weight tends to fluctuate as they're learning the skills of intuitive eating, but that's not to say you can't pursue fitness goals. But I think kind of focusing on a weight loss number is really, really toxic. So when we go through this process of learning intuitive eating and learning how to heal our relationship with food, if we can instead shift our focus onto pursuing fitness goals from a place of what are my behavior-based goals, what are my athletic outcomes that I'd like to see, and sure, if we have aesthetic goals, can we look at them different than just weight specifically? Like if I want to develop my glutes or I want to be more toned, can I pursue, a movement style or an exercise style that allows that to happen rather than focusing on the number on the scale, which becomes so incredibly toxic? We can focus on instead when we're pursuing fitness goals, and something that I did was I instead focused on body recomposition. So instead of focusing on the number on the scale, I focused on when I wanted to think about aesthetics, I focused on body recomposition. Like, okay, I want to build my quads. I want to be toned here or tighter there. And so I'm going to focus on moving my body in a certain way. And when it comes to nutrition, I don't want to be neurotic with food. I don't want to live counting calories and counting macros. Instead, I want to have this abundance mindset where I'm adding in, micronutrients through vegetables, and I'm getting protein, and I'm paying attention, but I'm paying attention to supporting my health, but it's not this obsessive compulsive way of doing things. And so, trying to lose weight with intuitive eating really isn't intuitive. What's the goal with intuitive eating? It's all about having an easier relationship with food, gaining back mental real estate, broadening the perspective of what we're focusing on, being able to pursue things and pursue our goals with long-term outcomes instead of being in this weight cycling. The goal with intuitive eating is about getting our life back, getting time back, reducing our stress levels, finding more fulfillment, finding more purpose, finding more meaning, having more energy to do other things, pulling ourselves out of this obsessive compulsive focus on picking apart our body, finding true confidence, and being able to feel good in our skin by having a broader perspective of how to do that, by paying attention to, the variety of things that make us us, and not getting so sucked into this all-consuming pursuit of having the scale hit a certain number that once it does, we think it's going to solve our insecurity problems, our body image problems. It doesn't. I've been there. It doesn't if we don't do the inner work. So how to navigate both? In conclusion, I think You don't have to fear that you have to let go of your desires. But I think what needs to be recognized, that I wish I recognized, was that there needs to be a broadening of perspective, and there's skills that perhaps you're missing that are keeping you from being able to pursue long-term outcomes and have long-term success. And when it comes to the whole weight loss thing, can you lose weight? I was just speaking with one of my former clients the other day who's gone through my program, fundamentally changed her relationship with food, and has been focusing on health promoting behaviors, getting consistent with moving her body, health promoting behaviors when it comes to nutrition, and making sure she's getting in enough vitamins and minerals, and eating well balanced at each meal without having to be obsessive compulsive with it, and track her macros and track her calories. And as a result, her body composition has changed. She's lost weight, and yet it's from this fundamentally different place. And I think that's the point. And the idea is freedom, right? We don't want to be trapped in diet culture and in insecurity and thinking that the way to body confidence is via focusing on weight loss, because when has that worked for you in the past? And I guess that's my point is, and that's what I wish somebody would have, lovingly came into my life and said when I was so deep in it. So with all of that said, I hope these tips and these thoughts were helpful in one way or another. I would be honored to support you and guide you through the Food Freedom Online program into the journey of intuitive eating and healing your relationship with food and your body. If you're interested, the link will be in the show notes. You can check out all of the details at www.foodfreedomonlineprogram.com. Thank you so much for tuning in to the show. If you have a second to rate and review the podcast, I read every single one. It means the world to me, and it helps us get discovered. So thank you for participating in spreading the message of body confidence and the message of food freedom, because the world really does need this. So many men and women and individuals across our globe are struggling, and my hope is that the message of hope can spread far and wide. So thank you for being a part of the episode, for tuning in. I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.